In this video, you're going to learn some essential career lessons from myself, someone who's worked for over 10 years in the finance industry at top companies like Goldman's, HSBC and Morgan Stanley, and also from this individual here, Corey, who's worked at many top firms, also Deloitte, Accenture, and now he's working at Google. So you've got a good varied level of experience to help you with some important career lessons. So let's get into it and see what we can learn.
Told you I was going to be transparent with y'all. Everybody have to start somewhere in their life, and everybody have to have a starting point to then get to a point to where they really want to be. I was fortunate enough to have some of these experiences that helped me get to where I am now. I don't want any of you all to think that just because you're not where you need to be financially now don't mean that you're never going to be there. Just because you're not making what you want to make now don't mean that you'll never get to the number that you want to make. You got to keep grinding, you got to keep pushing yourself, and you got to keep putting yourself out there. I graduated from the University of South Carolina, right? Graduated with a business degree.
The important thing here is that quick lesson he gave there, which is, everyone has to start somewhere. I've definitely started, I worked in some of those banks I mentioned before, but at the start of my career, I wasn't necessarily in the best position. I was working for some financial data firms. That was quite boring data analysis, but you got to start somewhere and climb your way up, right? I went from working as like a data analyst to working as an investment banking analyst and moving up to associate, vice president and director level at several of these companies. And through moving through different roles and different departments and things like that, when you climb up, when you climb up the career ladder, you want to make more money, and you want to make sure you use that money in a sustainable way so you can save and invest it, but also not focus on your social status or your job titles that are kind of made up, right? One company might call you an analyst, another company might call you a director, but it's not really dependent. Your self-worth isn't dependent on those job titles or where you start. And regardless of where you start, you can experience massive growth in your income, earning potential, and your life goals. And you shouldn't get too caught up on, how other people perceive you, particularly at the start of your career when you're starting at a lower level. And the more money you have, the more you can save and invest for your future and your freedom, and not go through, say, lifestyle inflation where you're just trying to keep up with the Joneses, keep up with your neighbors with a certain way. And particularly in investment banking, people are so focused on social status, the money they spend on clothes, going to expensive nightclubs and bars, and that's not really a life to having a sustainable future. And that's why when you're in your early days, you should plan ahead on living quite humble, living a minimalist life, so you can have your freedom and maximize your freedom over the long term, rather than getting trapped into a high cost of living situation or being so obsessed with job status and social status that you lose track of your true goals, and instead you're focused on impressing others. So bear that in mind at the start of your career.
Hospitality management, and I wanted to go into hotels, right? I wanted to be either like a resort manager or a hotel manager. That's what they taught us in school, you know what I'm saying? That's what they taught us in hospitality school, HRTM. If y'all any hospitality, HRTM majors out there, shout out to y'all know.
What's important here is a very quick lesson. When he was going through his education, he saw an interest in working in hospitality in hotels, like being a hotel desk manager, managing hotels, being in the kind of leisure and entertainment industry. So results, things like that. Now, the important lesson here is that be careful when you are younger and you're getting caught up with what everyone else is telling you, right? It's not necessarily the worst job in the world, but to what extent, does that job pay well? Do you like the lifestyle of the job? Does it give you the optionality or the flexibility you want, maybe to work the work hours you want, maybe to have a side business, to work from home, things like that. So not all jobs do. Of course, if you're working in a hotel, you're probably not working from home unless you're managing the admin on a laptop. If you're working, for example, when I was at London School of Economics, so if you're new to the channel, I studied at London School of Economics, which is a top university for economics in the UK. And many people wanted to work in investment banking or corporate law, but they didn't really look into it. Like, what are that job hours like? What is the work environment like? Is it kind of a very tense, cutthroat environment? What are the salary potential growth? Is there a salary cap at a particular level? Do people tend to get stuck at maybe 120K salary a year? Do they really progress to the level they want? They work on a freelance or contract basis. What are their options? What are their exit strategy options? These are all the things you need to consider, right? Because many people, they just consider, okay, I'm going into this, it interests me, this is what I've been told to do, and then they start the job, and they're not fit for the job, they're not the right fit for the job. So they might be working in let's just say they're working as a salesperson because they were told their whole university and college life that, oh, you got to be working in sales and trading. You got to work in sales and trading. That's the high paying job. That's the high profile job. Then they become a salesperson. Maybe they make it through the job interviews and they just don't like selling things to people, but they wanted to go into sales and trading because that's what they were told. And maybe they have more technical skills and they should go work as a data analyst or doing some kind of trading analysis and investment analysis things. So that's what you should really consider quite carefully. Really think carefully what you're being told at university and college, what you actually have an interest in, and try to monetize what you have an interest in rather than what you're told. For example, I studied economics and I had an interest in writing more than the numerical side. And most people, they're either more numbers or they're more words orientated. And I was more words orientated, even though it might seem like, oh, you want to work in economics and finance, why would you not be more technically focused on numbers and numerical data and things like that? But I had an interest more in writing, so I developed those report writing skills. I studied economics and economic history, so I was good at writing essays, writing reports, doing some analysis through that. So that's more my personality type. So you should always check those type of different nuances of the jobs you're pursuing. And also consider your exit strategy, because he went into hospitality and working in hotels and eventually found out he didn't really like it and he wanted to do something else. And that's what I'd recommend you consider, is that if you're picking a particular career, really think, oh, what does someone think? Does people still enjoy this job or want to do it after 10, 20 years? Where do most of them end up? You might think you want to work in hospitality and manage hotels. And then you find out, well, most people who go into this line of work, they don't end up managing a hotel. They end up just being the receptionist at the front of the hotel. They might end up being managing some kind of cleaners in the hotel. Do you want to be a management of cleaning hotels? That's really what you got to think about carefully, is what you're doing and what is your long-term goals.
There for like 6 months, but I enjoyed working there. But the problem was I was so much younger than everybody that was there. It was harder to get respect, and I didn't let that bring me down. I think I pretty much got the respect that I needed eventually, but it was a challenge, and dealing with those problems at such a young age, staffing, people calling out, people getting sick on the job, hotel stuff, rooms calling you, front desk calling you, you being on duty as a manager on duty and things like that. I wasn't getting paid for that. Like I said, I was making like $8 an hour at the time. So I felt like I was in a position to where I was asked to do way more than what I was getting paid. So I was like, let me go ahead and find somewhere else to go. So I went to the Hampton Inn downtown Columbia, stayed there for 2 months. Same thing, I was doing the same exact thing, but I stayed there for 2 months because I was like, you know something? I'm done with hotels. I want to go do something else. I was like, maybe I just need to get my master's in higher education because, I was on campus, I was involved in things like that. It's an easy matriculation into just getting a job there. So I was like,
so this is an important lesson here, right? Sometimes when you're working a job, corporate job, other jobs like this, working in hotels, you might be very junior, but you're put into a senior role. And they say, oh, we're going to put you in this senior role and give you the experience, but they're not paying you adequately in alignment with what the job is. So that's something you've got to look out for. If you're junior and you're put into a senior role, do it for several months. Figure out if you're doing a good job, maybe for 6 months to a year. And then ask them, okay, I might be more junior and younger for the role, but I'm fulfilling the job requirements as required. Can I get paid as adequately as someone who'd be older than me doing this? I might have less experience, but I'm doing the same job that they would be doing, just with some less experience because I'm younger. And this is the terrible thing about a lot of jobs, a lot of corporate office jobs or jobs in general, is they just think years of experience means you should get paid more. Yeah, typically you'd have more years of experience and you'll be better at the job like that. But sometimes you are younger and you're doing a more senior role and you're still not getting the pay you deserve. You're still treated quite poorly. So you should just bear that in mind. Maybe if they're not willing to increase your salary and you're more junior working a senior role, do it for 2 to 3 years maximum and look for another job that is going to pay you in line with your level of ability rather than how many years you've been working a job and just underpaying you because you are younger than someone else. And it can be quite hard to get respect when you are more junior. So again, another piece of career advice is to be detached from how other people perceive you. Don't be too focused on social status and things like that. And when you are more junior, dealing with a management role, you're managing people, you realize one of the biggest risks in any job is other people, not just co-workers and their gossiping and backstabbing or your management lying to you. But if you're managing other people, you'll see all types of excuses. People will make up excuses for being sick, or they might make excuses for not doing the work on time, or they might be quite demanding, asking you for help or not doing much work. Now, some of these reasons are quite genuine. Obviously, they might be sick for a genuine reason, but just be aware of these type of dynamics, these social dynamics. If you are junior, you put in a senior role. It's all about managing people and people's personalities. And as I say, you've got to be careful about that. And you have to understand as early as you can in your career is that the system is a scam, right? So the system, your management might be lying to you about getting promotions, about getting a pay rise. You might have to lie to a certain extent to your junior employees about them getting promotions or pay rises just to keep them happy and keep them here. That's how this system works. It really is a scam. And you need to learn how to finesse the system, whether like I say, making the most use of your time in the office, going to the gym in the middle of the day, taking a longer lunch break, relaxing and working at your own pace and not getting too worn out in terms of overworking yourself. And then he mentions looking at switching industries. Now, switching industries isn't always the best solution. He mentions going from hotel, he goes to work in recruiting in Accenture, Deloitte, and then Google, which we'll cover in a moment. But the thing is, switching industries is not always the solution. Sometimes you'll realize it's the same thing in all industries. The same way you might be underpaid working in hospitality in the hotel industry, you might be underpaid also in the recruiting industry for finance or tech, right? So you have to be aware of these type of nuances here. And you might need to, if you're going to study more to get a new job, go back to university, do a master's, things like that. Is that actually going to pay off? Really think carefully, because when you're in the working life and not the student life, or not early on in your career, every move you make should give you more money and more freedom, right? Or if you're going to sacrifice one or the other, it should eventually benefit the other. If you're going to sacrifice your freedom to earn more money because you have to work in an office compared to work from home, then does that job path give you the option later on to work remotely, or you're making so much money that you can save and invest it to retire early? So you should be aware of those type of things. Be aware of, like, the same kind of scam way of the companies operate is similar between all industries. And then also be aware of, as I say, how you could be mistreated and how you should be careful what time and energy you dedicate in terms of studying. Anything you study, any professional qualification should help you make more money. If it's not, then it's just a pointless gimmick qualification.
Enjoyed that. The assistant director of multicultural recruitment ended up leaving. And then I was tasked with running the summer seniors program for the summer and doing all kind of stuff, which was fun. But I still felt like I was underpaid at the time. I think my salary moved up to about $32,000 because I was doing director work. But I knew they wasn't going to hire me as the assistant director of multicultural recruitment because I didn't have a master's. You need a master's in order to be able to get that role. So then I'm like, now I'm at a standstill because I ain't got my master's yet. I didn't even apply yet. I was still trying to figure my way out. And around this time, I actually ended up getting married and divorced less than a year. So I had a lot of stuff going on and I really needed something to shake. And what happened was
So this is quite important, right? So he moved from hospitality, working in the hotel industry, to working into, he was doing some work when he went to study his master's, he doing some work at the university he was at. So again, he was caught up in the same situation. He was doing a more senior role, and that's why my career advice for a lot of you is to focus on really maximizing your earning potential. If you're put in a senior role, even though you are junior, do it for 6 months to a year, ask for a pay rise in line with what the job would expect to be paying. And then if not, then maybe work another year or two and find another job that is going to pay you on market with that job title. Now, this happened to me. I was working for a major investment bank. I work for some of these companies here, Goldman's, Morgan Stanley, and so on. I won't name the company, but I was working at one of them for 4 years, and I had 4 different managers. They would change the manager every year because the management didn't like the management above them, and they didn't like all the micromanagement of them dealing with their manager. And one of those managers was frequently out of office. One of them was having kids, and they'd be out for 9 months at a time. Some of them were dealing with all types of difficult circumstances where they would just be in and out the office, they would not be getting on with people, and I was always caught in between that because I was more junior and I ended up picking up the slack for their work. I was not getting paid sufficiently with market rate, and they gave me 1 or 2 pay rises, but it was not keeping up with the inflation when inflation was particularly high. And also, I was not getting paid for doing my manager's work or getting the credit for it. And it was like, why am I keep putting in effort here when they can't seem to keep a manager in the job role for more than a year? We had one manager who came who moved from another department to my department. She did it for almost a year, and then she didn't like it and she moved back to her old job because she really didn't like the management. This is the type of nonsense you have to deal with. And you don't really see a lot of career progression when you are caught up with this type of frequent changes that they can't manage. And also you need to bear in mind certain other key lessons. There's certain things that I've skipped over here, but if you are more junior listening to this, in terms of career lessons and life lessons, he was studying his masters after working for a few years. He was studying his masters. He got married and got divorced within the space of a year. My advice to you in terms of your career growth is try to avoid making big life decisions like getting married, because that might not work out at a younger age, unless you're sure it's going to work out. I don't want to focus too much on your personal life, but that could impact your professional reputation, right? So if you're caught up with a dysfunctional relationship and you're not stable in your career, and you have an unstable career, unstable relationship, unstable financial situation, that's a very difficult reality to have combined, right? To live in that type of environment. So I'd advise you to kind of avoid marriage at a young age unless you're 100% sure about it. Focus on your financial stability and avoiding that kind of divorce, which could ruin you financially quite early on. And also use all that energy and that you typically invest in terms of socializing and dating and things like that. You can do some of that, but put it into your financial freedom, which would be your career or through your saving and investing and things like that.
If I continue throughout the interview process for this role, boom, ended up getting it, and that's what made my salary go from like $68,000 to a little over $100,000. $100,000. It got me a nice little sign-on, got me a nice little salary, and then that's what really helped me be able to get to where I am now. And at this time, I was still making YouTube videos, right? And I was still getting a couple of brand deals, and I was still getting a couple of opportunities and stuff like that. So, I was still finding my groove. Continue to strive for what you want. Never just settle and never just accept your fate for what you think it is. Never feel like you're stuck. Never feel like you're going to be in that role forever. Pray about it. Seek after different opportunities and keep going. That whole experience kind of humbled me because I'm able to step inside the shoes of others. I've been at the point where I was out of college making $7 an hour. I've been at the point.
So what's interesting here is what happened next in his career, right? He moved from working in a HR recruiting role in Deloitte and Accenture to Google, and he saw a massive jump in his salary from $68,000 a year to over $100,000. Now, typically you won't see those big jumps unless you are making a major move like he did to Google. Now, my experience is that typically your salary increases in line with inflation or are slightly slower than that. You won't see as big jumps, in my opinion. He was kind of quite fortunate to get that. And my advice to you would be to keep pushing to climb the corporate ladder and looking to jump, make those big jumps if you can. You moving from one job to another is better than climbing the corporate ladder. At the same company, you can get a 20 to 30% salary rise moving from one company to the other. Rather than staying in one role, be flexible about switching, because he moved, as I say, it's quite drastic, moving from the hotel and hospitality industry to working in finance, recruiting, Accenture and Deloitte, to moving to tech recruitment. So be careful with making those moves if it makes sense for you, but also be quite strategic in making those moves because it can really benefit your massive salary increases, as you can see here. So also, an important thing on your CV when you are making big moves is to make sure your CV has a consistent narrative. And what I mean by that, and career advice, link in description if you want to speak with me directly. If you want to write your CV and you are making some of these moves, your CV should be consistent. Maybe you're working in hotel and hospitality, and then you decided to move into recruiting. And what's the link between hospitality and recruiting? You might have to include that in your profile summary or in job interviews and explain, I enjoyed working with people and helping them through the hotel and hospitality industry, and I wanted to do the same in terms of recruiting. I had good people skills, interpersonal skills, and attracting people to the hotel, attracting people to these job opportunities when I was at recruitment events, at university recruitment events, helping get people to work for Google, things like that. That's how you can build a consistent narrative of showing your growth, how you seek better opportunities for yourself. And also think about your long-term life goals. As is covered here, he was kind of moving between industries based on what interests him more, what would give him a salary increase. What I would say for me, and maybe for you watching this, is the goal necessarily for me isn't necessarily the money or the company title, although of course the money will help bring me closer to my goal, which is freedom. I'm looking for financial freedom. I would like to help people with their careers, and I want to live a low-cost minimalist lifestyle, right? And it wasn't always this way, because early on in my life, like a lot of you, I'm sure you wanted to maybe own a house, get married, have kids. Sometimes that's a potential standard life that people want to do, buy a house in the suburbs, things like that. And you can still pursue those goals, but you can see financially that's maybe not the best option, and even socially these days. So it's important to focus on what your goals are and what you want in terms of your career, not what everyone else wants. Because if you follow the traditional path, firstly, that middle class lifestyle is becoming overly priced, overly expensive. And also, it depends what you want. I knew I never wanted to be some of these middle-aged men you see in middle management, and they're stuck with the 3 M's. And what are the 3 M's? The 3 M's would be mortgages and being stuck in middle management, right? And being middle-aged, right? Because you see all these people, they have the 3 M's. They are stuck in middle management, they're middle-aged, and they have a massive mortgage, and they're tied to that job. And if they lose that job, they can lose their whole life, right? If you're a man, you're middle-aged, you lose your job, you might find a difficult time finding another job because they'll consider you a bit too old to continue working in the industry. They might look for someone who's younger, more junior, who has less costly. They have to pay lower salary for them rather than hiring you. You have a massive mortgage, so you have like a chain, the chains of debt, slavery essentially attached to you, and you have to work to pay off that massive house that you have that you technically don't need, but that you're paying off to maintain your social status. And then also many of these people are stuck in dead-end marriages, things like that, right? So, I mean, how many M's can we count here, right? Marriages, mortgages, middle management. These are all things that you can get stuck in. They're all traps in a sense. Not saying that getting a mortgage is bad in all senses or being in a marriage is bad in all senses, but a lot of these things, they're long-term commitments that could really trap you in a particular position. I'm focused more on my freedom, as I'm sure based on the comments many of you are, and that's what you should focus on your career goal, I would advise, right? Rather than focused on a job title or being a managing director at Goldman Sachs. Firstly, only a handful of people make it to that level. And secondly, it's a lot of stress and you're dealing with a cutthroat environment. You could be a middleman. I know, I won't mention the company, but I know managing directors in investment banking, and they were doing a great job, getting good performance reviews for 15 years straight, earning a lot of money. They invested or spent money on significant costs on housing and their property where they live with their family and customizing it. And then all of a sudden, after 15 years, the very senior management wanted someone new in. They fired the guy, even though it's very hard to justify given he had quite a good performance and he had a whole legal battle with them. But he lost his job, was unemployed for about 3 years, and then he found another job, which was quite high paying too. But those type of circumstances can happen. That's why you need to focus. Listen, this system can pull the rug from up under you at any moment, pull the corporate career ladder up from under you at any moment. So focus on your freedom rather than just a job title or a fancy company name that you want on your CV. So you develop your skills, you focus on your career growth, you have a clear end goal in mind, whatever that is, even if it's not the end goal I advised, and you move up, focus on investing in yourself, in your own skills, and getting those brand name companies on your CV if you can, so you can increase your leverage to maximize your ability to make more money and live life on your terms. So I hope you found that helpful. There were lots of good career tips from myself and Corey, who's worked in tech. I've worked in finance. If you want more detailed, tailor-made career advice, there is a link in the description. And there are 2 recommended videos on your screen right now. And I'll see you next time.